nós temos uma atração muito especial hoje, que é um painel que vai ser conduzido e foi produzido pela revista Economist, exclusivamente para o nosso evento. Antes do evento, eles conduziram um debate online, através do site da revista, um debate muito animado sobre qual seria o combustível do futuro. A revista, por sinal, no debate optou pelo biocombustível sobre a eletricidade. E, assim, ela gerou um debate muito animado, com muita participação global. Parte do conteúdo desse debate eles vão utilizar aqui na discussão que vamos presenciar daqui a pouco. Este painel vai ter uma diferença em relação aos outros painéis e plenárias do Summit. Eles vão circular microfones pela plateia para as pessoas que quiserem fazer perguntas. Então, tanto faz, as pessoas podem preencher o formulário que foi distribuído na entrada, mandar a pergunta por escrito, ela será feita pelo moderador, ou podem sinalizar para os atendentes que elas trarão um microfone e a pessoa fará a pergunta. A sessão vai ser conduzida em inglês. Portanto, quem precisa, por favor, pegue o foninho para ter a tradução simultânea. Na hora das perguntas, não tem problema fazer a pergunta em português, porque aí eles também terão o foninho e estarão ouvindo a tradução para inglês. Portanto, cada um naturalmente na sua língua e vamos em frente. Então, é muito prazer, uma honra trazer esta atração para o Ethanol Summit. Foi algo que nós negociamos com entusiasmo, pela novidade que é, pela novidade que representa. A Economist costuma realizar eventos próprios, então, de repente, nós temos algo diferente. Uma participação da Economist em outro evento, para nós, é uma grande honra contar com eles aqui. Eu vou, então, passar a palavra para o Geoffrey Carr, que é o editor de ciência da revista Economist, que está aqui conosco para moderar o painel. Eu peço a ele que venha ao palco com os convidados do painel de hoje. Muito obrigado a todos, e eu volto no final com algumas mensagens adicionais. Geoffrey Carr, por favor.
Thank you. Right. Is this the thing? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. They've given me this thing. I'm not quite sure how to operate it. I'm trying to get a slide up. Can somebody? Ah, yes, here we are. So, we are here, I suppose, to question the whole purpose of this meeting. This meeting is to look at the future of bioethanol, particularly in the context of Brazil. And we have here three representatives of what they hope will be the future of transport. One of whom does indeed think it will be biofuels, although not bioethanol. The other two, however, think that it will be electric, and that the internal combustion engine will wither, and with it will wither any form of liquid fuel, whether made from plants or dug out of the ground. So we hope to provoke, we hope to tease, we hope to confront your expectations and ask whether bioethanol, biofuels really are any sort of future at all, or whether perhaps the future of ground transport, at least, lies with electric motors. So the three participants in the panel, first of all, they're all chief executives of their companies. The first one is John Melo, who's chief executive of Amyris. He represents the biofuels side of things. Amyris is a synthetic biology company which tries to make sophisticated chemicals from simple ingredients using bacteria and yeasts and engineered biochemical pathways. It started off making a drug for malaria, but it's now involved in biofuels, as I'm sure you're all aware, and is looking at Brazilian sugarcane as its raw material. Dr. Melo used to work for British Petroleum, so he knows what it is to work in big business. He hopes that Amyris will become a big business one day. He was once the e-business advisor to Lord Brown. Sorry, I don't think this thing's working, is it? Can you hear me okay? Fine. He was once the advisor to Lord Brown, who was then chief executive of BP. and he hopes, I imagine, that Amyris will one day become as big as BP. The next person is Henrik Fisker. He is the chief executive of Fisker Automotive, which is one of the first all-battery car companies. He has a distinguished career as a designer of vehicles, BMW Z8, the Aston Martin DB9, and my personal favorite, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. One day, maybe I'll own one. He has designed what they call the Fisker Karma, which is described as the world's first luxury plug-in hybrid, although Elon Musk and his Tesla may have something to say about that. The Tesla is rather smaller than the Karma. And he used to work for Ford, so he's used to big business too. And the third member of our panel is Prabhakar Patil. He represents battery manufacturing. He's the CEO of Compact Power, which is a North American company, but it's a subsidiary of LG Chemicals of Korea. They are manufacturing batteries. They are dealing with General Motors, if that company continues to exist. He worked at Ford, and he hopes to be providing the batteries for mass production hybrid vehicles in the future. So we have one biofuels person and two battery people. Now, we on The Economist were running a web debate over the past few weeks, and this is the conclusion. Readers of The Economist, or at least readers of The Economist who participated in the debate, voted basically 2-1 that the future of automotive transport is batteries rather than biofuels. So that's the challenge to you, to persuade the readers of The Economist and the rest of the world that they're wrong and that biofuels are the future, and that Brazil will provide a lot of the raw materials for those biofuels. So what we're proposing to do is that I will ask a few general questions of the panelists and try and start a debate, and then we'll open it to questions to the floor, and we'll alternate some questions from the floor and some questions from me, and see how the thing goes. So my first question to you gentlemen is the age of oil really drawing to a close? And will the developments of your technologies, your various technologies, be stalled if the price of oil remains low? So is there any future for these new technologies at all, or will we just go back to oil? Mr. Melo.
Great, Geoffrey. Good morning to everyone. I started in the oil industry when oil was around $9 a barrel, so I don't consider today's prices low. And I would say that technology continues to amaze us. And so I'm not sure that I would think of oil being dead. I might consider oil being more and more expensive over time. And the question is, so with more expensive oil, what do you use it for? And how do you make the most efficient or effective use of whatever oil we do extract at whatever cost the remaining extraction is at? So I'm not a end of oil fan. I'm more a pragmatist in thinking about oil becoming more and more expensive and us getting smarter and smarter about the sources of oil we use. And what's exciting for me is being a country where the future of oil is present. And the future of oil for me is great sources, vast sources, scalable sources of renewable feedstock. So I don't think of Brazil as ethanol. I think of Brazil, and more importantly, sugarcane, as a fantastic renewable feedstock. And the question is, what do we do with that feedstock? If it is the new source of oil, and if it is a less expensive, and more importantly, better for the environment source of oil for the future, how do we make best use of it, and how do we use it in the right places? Whether that be transportation fuel for transporting commerce around the world, transporting people in planes around the world, making chemicals around the world, or making ethanol. But there's a broad range of applications for something called the world's leading renewable feedstock, and I think Brazil is at the center of that for a long time to come. I don't think of that because I think of the end of oil. I think of that because oil may not be the most practical hydrocarbon to use to solve some of the world's needs, especially as the world continues to evolve.
Dr. Fisker.
Well, I think that we have seen definitely the peak of oil consumption, at least when it comes to automobiles or cars. And I think what we're going to see now is a drop in gasoline use. And I think electricity is going to take it's actually going to increase quite a lot. I think we're going to see a dramatic increase in the next 10 years, where I could imagine at least most car companies will offer probably up to about 50% of their vehicles being somewhat electric driven. However, we have spent the last over 50 years, of course, developing a great infrastructure with gasoline stations, and it's going to take quite a while before we have an infrastructure where we have electricity available in the same way. I just want to correct one thing, Jeff, you said before. We do have battery-powered cars, Fisker automobiles, but we also have a small range-extending engine, which of course use gasoline, and I think that is probably what's going to be the transition from pure battery-powered cars until we get to a point where the batteries are powerful and cheap enough. I still think people want the range that a gasoline car offers simply because of comfort and a feeling of freedom. So I think we're going to see gasoline being used, but it's going to drop from now on in the automotive industry.
Dr. Patil?
Yeah, I think right now the fossil fuels are probably the best source of energy, most cost efficient and energy efficient, and that's why they're around. But to me, we are in the middle of this squeeze that we have to respond to. One side is the supply and demand. I think you've seen the data that says by 2040, even with the most aggressive assumptions, and the other side is CO2. The amount that is adding to the atmosphere, and we cannot continue to ignore either of these issues, because my fear is that they're likely to turn non-linear. And as an example, I see what happened in the US automotive industry. Just in the last year and a half, the industry has been turned upside down, and that's the rate at which things can change if we don't take actions to prevent it. And so I think it is prudent for us at this point to look at alternatives for oil. And fortunately, I do agree that electricity or electrification of the vehicle, but going gradually from the non-plug-in hybrids to plug-in hybrids to pure electrics probably holds the most potential going forward.
So to take that point up about greenery, which of your technologies, which of your advanced technologies do you think is the more green? Is it more green to use batteries which give out no CO2, obviously at the point where you're using them, but very often rely on coal-fired power stations? Or is it more green to use biofuels, which are part of the natural carbon cycle, but nevertheless have been derived from land which may well have been cleared? There are questions about the way that affects the carbon cycle of the soil and whether it's releasing carbon dioxide and also nitrous oxides, which are powerful greenhouse gases. So both of these technologies have a greenhouse gas impact of their own, although it's less than fossil fuels. Which of them do you think is the greener in that sense, just looking at the greenhouse gas impact?
I think we have to look at it from a different point of view than just currently trying to calculate which one is the greenest. I think we have to look into the future. And I think the future is that we want to generate the energy locally in each country and not transporting it. And that's really what we're doing with oil right now. And starting to use more electricity basically means you set up each country for using, in the future, hopefully the greenest